Welcome back to We Want Picks. I'm Artem MMA, and in this video I'm going to be breaking down Bellator 294 Carmouche versus Bennett 2, but this weekend Bellator is actually going to be hosting two events. They've got Bellator 294 and 295 taking place in Hawaii this weekend, so 294 is going to be on the Friday night, and on Saturday you do have the Bellator 295 card as well, which does have more fights on it, but this card's got 9 fights. It's a really good Bellator card as well. You normally don't see prelims this good on a Bellator card. Normally their prelims aren't quite as good as the main card, but in this card, they're really splashing out this weekend. Bellator's really putting on a good event, which does make sense. They have been able to go over to Hawaii. UFC is kind of struggling to get into Hawaii. As you guys can tell, I'm still Laptop Artem, so I'm still a mythical predictor right now. So hopefully we can get some good picks on this Bellator card. I'm really looking forward to breaking it down. But before we get into that, as you know, we've got the We Want Picks Premium membership service. You can sign up to get a 3-day free trial. You'll get access to everything for 3 days for free if you sign up using my code ARTEM. Aside from that, we do also have a We Want Picks Discord. There's a great community on there. If you haven't joined, it's free to join the Discord. You don't have to be a premium member, but you can access the Discord and you can still chat with us because we've got a great community going on in there. So let's just get straight into the picks. I do look forward to breaking down the card. It's a short one. It's only 9 fights, but it is going to be a pretty good card, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. Now, the first fight of the night is going to be Anthony Adams versus Sharaf Davlatmurodov, and if it goes the way that I think it is going to, I don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight, because what I do think is going to happen is I think Sharaf Davlatmurodov is going to take Anthony Adams down and then just control him for 3 rounds. Sharaf does have a lot of KOs on his record for someone with a style, which I wouldn't say is that exciting, because for the most part, what he kind of wants to do is just set up his takedowns with his striking, take people down, control them on the ground, and that is what I think he will do against Anthony Adams. I think Anthony Adams probably could outstrike Sharaf in the matchup, but I do like Sharaf to get takedowns and to control the fight to a decision. Most of Tapology does agree. They've got 91% picking Sharaf. The last fight as well Sharaf had was to Anatoly Tokov, who just got a title shot, and that was a long time ago. So he's only 31 years old. He's probably going to be making rapid improvements and probably will be improving that game. The odds are in the favor of Sharaf Davlatmurodov. He is a minus 240 favorite, and I believe Anthony Adams is sitting around plus 205 right now. That is on Bet Online. Now we move on to the next fight of the night, which will be Chris Lencioni taking on Blake Smith. Chris Lencioni is coming off that crazy win over Cody Law. In my opinion, I thought Cody Law won the fight, but hey, it is what it is. Chris Lencioni won as a pretty big underdog there, and it's probably the biggest win of his career. If you do go back, though, Chris Lencioni does have a loss to Don Chinese, which is a massive red flag. I am picking Chris Lencioni in the matchup. He's minus 120 as a favorite. Blake Smith you can get at about plus 100. Blake Smith spent a lot of his career at 155 pounds. He did lose his last fight to Kenneth St. Louis, where he was controlled and out-wrestled. And he did have a lot of success on the feet, but Kenneth St. Louis was a lot bigger than him. And it's probably half the reason why he is moving down to 145 pounds. Lencioni's a really good grappler, but he fights like an idiot. I don't really know how to describe it. That's literally the best way to describe it. The way that Chris Lencioni fights is his hands when he's fighting are below his waist most of the time, and he kind of just like leans forward and puts his face like ready to be hit. Like he just kind of fights like a showboater. He puts his hands behind his back. He talks to his opponents. It's worked for him so far, and it's just weird. Like I feel like someone like Blake Smith could knock him out, which is a little bit of concern. But I like Chris Lencioni's grappling. Like I just saw Blake Smith out-grappled by Kenneth St. Louis. I think Lencioni's a better pure grappler. I don't think Chris Lencioni's the best wrestler, so he may struggle to get Blake Smith to the ground. But I do think that Chris Lencioni will be able to out-grapple Blake Smith and probably win a decision, or maybe even find a submission. Like Blake Smith was put in some pretty bad positions by Kenneth St. Louis. He does have good cardio, though, to Blake Smith. He's been 5 rounds before, but the problem is with Blake Smith, he did slow down quite a bit in that fight with Kenneth St. Louis when he was getting taken down and grappled. So maybe if Lencioni can put some grappling on Blake Smith, maybe he could wear him down, get a late submission, but I do have him to win by decision. But I'm worried about him getting KO just by doing something dumb, because he does put his hands behind his back. He does put his hands below his waist. He's a fun fighter to watch, but if you're picking him, if you're even beating him, it'll probably be quite frustrating. But we'll move on to the next fight. Tyrell Fortune taking on Sergey Bilostenniy, and I am picking the underdog in this one here. I do have Tyrell Fortune to beat Sergey Bilostenniy. Tyrell Fortune is a wrestler and also somewhat of a grappler as well at heavyweight. You can see Tyrell Fortune, he had the rear naked choke kind of in against Daniel James, and then Daniel James came out in the second round and knocked him out. We have seen Tyrell Fortune knocked out in the first round before. We've seen him caught in the first round before. That is how Sergey will win this fight. Sergey has 7 wins by knockout, most of them in the first round as well, over pretty good competition as well. But this fight against Fernando Rodriguez Jr., which only happened about 10 months ago, Fernando Rodriguez Jr. was able to clinch up against Sergey, was even able to take Sergey down, and he's nowhere near the wrestler that Tyrell Fortune is. So what I think is going to happen in this matchup is I think Tyrell Fortune, if he doesn't get caught by Sergey, can take Sergey down, take him down and use some ground and pound, or maybe even get a submission of his own, because he did have a rear naked choke. He was going for one against Daniel James anyway. So I like Tyrell Fortune in the matchup to wrestle and take down Sergey. Maybe he gets a ground and pound TKO. Maybe he wins a decision at heavyweight, but I think Tyrell Fortune's the much better wrestler in the matchup. Sergey's a good striker though. He's very fast on the feet. He throws body kicks and he does have power in the hands, but I like Tyrell Fortune here. He's going to be the bigger heavyweight. He's going to be able to wrestle as well. He's the underdog on Tapology. He's the underdog on the odds as well. If you do look here, he is plus 130. Sergey's minus 150, but I do like Tyrell Fortune to be able to get the takedowns and maybe work for a submission or ground and pound TKO or grind out a decision even as well. And now we move up the card to Killys Mota taking on Kenneth Cross, and this is a very hard fight to predict, honestly. I do like Kenneth Cross in the matchup, but it is a very, 51%, 49% confidence. Killys Mota, in my opinion, does have a pretty big grappling advantage in this one here. Kenneth Cross, he does have decent grappling, but the problem is he does kind of tend to put himself in pretty bad positions when he is grappling, which is why he does have all 3 of his losses by submission. Killys Mota is a good grappler, but he doesn't really grapple to chase a submission. He kind of, when he gets on top, he's pretty patient, and he kind of works from there, which probably is in Kenneth Cross's favour, because if Killys Mota was a lights-out grappler, I would be a lot more scared for him in the matchup. On the feet, I think it's pretty even. Kenny Cross does have a pretty awkward sort of style. He was actually meant to be on The Ultimate Fighter Season 31 with Conor McGregor, but he's one of the 3 guys that got kicked off to make space for Conor McGregor's guy. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there, and I'm surprised Kenneth Cross was never picked up by the UFC just because of that, but Bellator obviously saw it as an opportunity to sign him, and I think he's going to beat Killys Mota, but as I said, it's a 51%, 49% chance. He hasn't fought in too long. You know, it's been about a year, and he doesn't fight too often, but he is super young, so we can get away with it. He's been on Dana White's Contender Series before, beat a guy that was 10-0, and it wasn't even that padded of a record either. He actually did have some legit wins, but a lot of people are with Cross. I could not believe how little people are on Mota in this matchup here. I don't really know why no one's on Mota. Maybe it is just because Kenneth Cross is 5-0 in his last 5 and Mota is 3-2. Because Mota has a very good chance to win this fight. If he can get takedowns and he can take Kenneth Cross down, who does have pretty good takedown defense though, if Mota gets this fight to the mat, I think it could be Mota's fight to win, really. I think Mota could definitely have a lot of success in the grappling and maybe latch up a submission. Mota hasn't got a sub in a long time, but he does have the ability to grapple and does have the ability to get submissions. I think Kenneth Cross does keep the fight on the feet, and as long as the fight's on the feet, I think it's in Kenneth Cross's world, and I think that he does get it done by decision or knockout, but I'm going to go with a decision here because Mota is pretty tough. Mota is the favourite, minus 150. I totally understand why he's the favourite. It's a no-bet fight for me. Even though I am on the underdog, I think we should just stay away and just enjoy the fight and see what Kenneth Cross is about when he does make his Bellator debut. We move on to Levan Chokheli taking on Michael Lombardo. I picked against Levan Chokheli in his last fight. I did pick the undefeated Roman Feraldo to beat him, and Levan Chokheli looked so good in that fight. There was actually a bit of a war, but Levan Chokheli, he is a very good striker, and he is fast, man. He's got really good kicks. He kicks the body, he kicks the legs, he can kick the head as well, and I like him to beat Lombardo in this matchup too. For Levan Chokheli, I've said it before, I want to say it again. Levan Chokheli is so fast on the feet. He's such a good striker. You do go through his record. He's got so many first-round KOs to start his career. Didn't really beat the best guys in the world. But then he'd come back. So he got signed to Bellator, took a step up in competition, and didn't have that much success. But he just beat Roman Ferraldo in a pretty exciting fight. I think he beats Michael Lombardo. Michael Lombardo is also a bit of a striker. He can wrestle himself, but he doesn't have good takedown defense. And if Levan Chokheli wants to, Levan Chokheli could probably wrestle and grapple in this one too, but I do like Levan Chokheli to beat Michael Lombardo, who's a tough guy. I know Chokheli got a lot of KOs in his career, but now that he's stepped up in competition, he's not really finding the same finishes, so I probably will go with Levan Chokheli to win a decision, but it's going to be a fun fight, because Levan Chokheli is a very, very exciting fighter, and honestly, I look forward to his fights, especially since he just fought Roman Ferraldo, and that was a very, very fun fight. So I do have Levan Chokheli to beat Roman Ferraldo here. I think he's going to be faster on the feet. I think he'll be better on the feet. Lombardo could go for takedowns if he wants to, but even then, Levan Chokheli's wrestling and grappling is pretty good. And he's young. He's going to be making constant improvements. He's only 26 years old. So, yeah, I like Chokheli to win this matchup. We now move on to Danny Sabatello taking on Marcus Breno. You kind of just got to go with Danny Sabatello here. I did forget to tell you the odds are in the last one. Chokheli is minus 210. And if you do look at this fight here, you do have Danny Sabatello about minus 550. Marcus Breno is plus 420. I like Danny Sabatello. If he wins, it's going to be by decision. Sabatello's not finishing anyone, man. I would be very surprised if Sabatello got a finish. And Bellator, I'd be very surprised if Sabatello got a finish in general, because what he does is he wrestles and he just kind of controls his opponents on top for 3 rounds or for 5 rounds, I guess, in the case of his last fight. But Ruffian Stotts, he had a very close fight with Ruffian Stotts, and that's a very good look for someone like Danny Sabatello, who was being overlooked in that matchup a lot. But Sabatello's striking's not that good, but what he does have is really good cardio and really good wrestling, and the ability to stay on top, and also just the ability to land ground and pound to kind of stay on top of his opponents. And I think that fighting Marcus Breno is a step down in competition for Sabatello. Like, he just beat Leandro Higo, he just beat Jornal Lugo, and just beat Brett Johns, who's coming in from the UFC, you know what I mean? And Damon Blackche's now in the UFC, but Marcus Breno, he come in, he beat Josh Hill, looked amazing, honestly surprised me a lot. I didn't expect him to win that fight, but I think Sabatello just takes down Marcus Breno and controls him for 3 rounds, lands ground and pound, wins a decision. It won't be that exciting if Sabatello does win. If Breno wins, it probably would be because he knocks him out on the feet, but I like Sabatello to win a decision in this one here. On the feet, though, it could be dangerous with Breno, but I think we're just going to see Sabatello take Breno down, out-wrestle him, out-grapple him, and win a decision. So, yeah, it is interesting, though, just seeing that Marcus Breno does train with Glover Teixeira's gym, so he might have a pretty good game plan and take some defense for this fight, but it's a big step up in competition for Breno, and it's a step down in competition for Danny Sabatello, in my opinion. So, and now that we move up the card, you can see that Sara McMann is actually going to be making her Bellator debut against Arlene Blencowe. And stylistically, this is a very good matchup for Sara McMann, but she is 42 and a half years old, and that's what I said about her last fight with Carol Rosa in the UFC. I was like, man, like Sara McMann, 41 and a half years old, but she's still doing it. And I think this is a very good matchup for Sara McMann, because Arlene Blencowe is kind of like a pure striker. She does have good takedown defense, but it's not against the same level of wrestler as Sara McMann, because Sara McMann is a very good wrestler. I believe she's a former Olympian as well. And Blencowe, you know, she is, as I said, pure striker. Her last losses are to Chris Cyborg, you know, 2 in a row, which isn't that bad. Honestly, Chris Cyborg is like one of the greatest woman fighters of all time, but in this matchup, it's just not a good fight for Arlene Blencowe. I think Sara McMann is going to put the wrestling on Arlene Blencowe and take her down. If Blencowe can keep the fight on the feet, I think Arlene Blencowe can win the matchup. I think she'll be the better striker against Sara McMann, but I just think we're going to see Sara McMann out-wrestle Arlene Blencowe, really test that takedown defense, which I did say is pretty good, but I think we're going to see McMann get takedowns on Blencowe and win a decision in her Bellator debut. And it's at women's featherweight as well. So Sara McMann, she's moving up a weight class. She won't have to cut as much weight. Probably a good thing, honestly, because she is 42 and a half. I'm sure that weight cut wasn't getting any easier. So Arlene Blencowe's not that big either for 145. It's not like Arlene Blencowe's like 5'11". She's also 5'6", so they'll be around the same size on fight night, which should help McMann with her wrestling. Now we move up the card in the co-main event. You've got Tim Johnson taking on Sowma, and I'm just waiting on my laptop to load. Here it is. So I do think that Sowma wins this matchup. Sowma has he's been very close to beating some very good fighters like Davion Franklin, who's a pretty good up-and-coming heavyweight. Gokhan Sarakam as well. 8 months ago, I believe I actually picked Sowma to win that matchup. But prior to that, you know, he's got a couple of KOs, one of them to broken finger against Vitaly Minakov. But I like Sowma to beat Tim Johnson. Tim Johnson is 38 years old at this point. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's kind of got like a boxing heavy style, and he wrestles as well. And kind of the same sort of thing with Sowma, but I would say Sowma at this point is probably the better striker out of the two. So I do like Sowma to beat Tim Johnson in this matchup here. I think he might even get it done by KO. And that's what everyone's picking. So I might go with Sowma by KO. I think Tim Johnson, you know, is 38 years old. He's been KO'd twice in a row now. To Linton Vassell, which isn't a bad loss, and Fedor Emelianenko. That happens, you know what I mean? But we do go to the odds. I did forget to say the odds of the last fight, but Sara McMann is minus 190 over Blencowe, which I kind of like. And honestly, I might even put McMann in a parlay with Sharaf Davlatmurodov, which sounds pretty sketchy, and it is, but I don't really mind it too much. And then you do look at the Tim Johnson fight side. Sowma is a pretty sizable favorite. He's minus 275, and Tim Johnson is plus 235. But I like Sowma. I think the odds are a little bit wide. I think they're underestimating Johnson because he's still got that power. He's got the boxing, wrestling, heavy style. But I think Sowma will get it done over him. Now we move on up the card. You've got Liz Carmouche versus DeAnna Bennett. You've kind of just got to go Liz Carmouche here. They're both pretty old at this point in their careers. Liz Carmouche is 39 years old. DeAnna Bennett is 38. And it's really happy. I'm pretty happy to see Liz Carmouche have so much success in her career now that she's the Bellator champion, because she fought for the UFC belt against Ronda Rousey all that time ago. I think what Liz Carmouche does in this matchup is just beat DeAnna Bennett kind of everywhere. I think Liz Carmouche is the better striker. DeAnna Bennett kind of just, she strikes and then she grapples and just kind of holds her opponents down. Like she beat Justin Kish twice, but Justin Kish was on a pretty bad run at that point. She beat Alejandra Lara as well, who's still in Bellator as well. But I think Liz Carmouche, wherever the fight is probably better and more likely to find a finish. I don't think Liz Carmouche could knock out DeAnna Bennett on the feet, but I do think Liz Carmouche could submit DeAnna Bennett on the ground. And Liz Carmouche, you know, she beat Juliana Velasquez by TKO, and then she just submitted her 3 months ago. So all of a sudden, Liz Carmouche is looking really, really good. And I think that she will be able to beat DeAnna Bennett. Carmouche has fought Bennett in the past. This is a rematch. And she submitted DeAnna Bennett. And I believe it was the last loss of DeAnna Bennett's career. And it was a rear naked choke in the 3rd round, I believe. I think there's a very good chance Liz Carmouche finds a submission again over DeAnna Bennett. I think what she does is just always be a step ahead over DeAnna Bennett. I think she's kind of better wherever the fight goes. I think the odds do reflect that because Liz Carmouche is minus 350 is a pretty sizable favorite. But she's the Bellator champion. She's defending against DeAnna Bennett. She's beaten DeAnna Bennett before. It's a stylistically a pretty good matchup for her as well, because they both kind of have the same sort of style. But at this point, Liz Carmouche probably is the better grappler. I think Carmouche is the better striker as well. I think she finds a submission at some point in her and not in her career, in the fight. So let me know what you think of those predictions. Let me know if you think I'm an idiot. I'm pretty happy with the picks. There's a couple of very sketchy ones there. I'm picking 2 underdogs in a row with Tyrell Fortune and Kenneth Cross, but aside from that, I'm feeling pretty good about my picks. You know, I think it should be a pretty good card, and I will be back for Bellator 295 in the next video. So yeah, keep your eye out for that. And it should be a good weekend, you know. We've got UFC, we've got Bellator. There's a couple of other regional promotions going on as well, but Bellator and UFC combined have 3 events going on, so it should be a pretty good card. So yeah, I look forward to hearing what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one.